Hey guys. Hope you're all awake from the coffee break. So yeah, here with Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
And just wanted to talk about, I guess, what's going on at Braintree now. Seems like a really interesting time for you guys and for PayPal for sure. So I guess first question for you is, what was the impact Braintree immediately had on PayPal? I know you guys have worked on stuff over time, but like, what was the impact for PayPal initially?
Well, I mean, I think the coming together of Braintree and PayPal is really about, we had started with the premise that mobile payments would really happen first via e-commerce on the mobile device, which if, 3 years ago when we were going down that path sounded sort of crazy. Everybody else was betting on sort of NFC and, plug a dongle into a phone and swipe a card and those kinds of things. We said, no, e-commerce will happen on the mobile device. And at that time, it was all like dollar downloads and ringtones and things like that. And people said, hey, people will never buy things on the mobile device. But we bet big on that anyway. And then lo and behold, you started having these great mobile buying experiences that built on Braintree, Uber and Airbnb and Hotel Tonight and thousands of others. And so PayPal started moving down that same path as well. And so we started to see sort of a very common vision, emerging around those things. And so getting back to sort of the immediate impact of that, our premise was that if we gave sort of easy access to the most sophisticated payment tools in the world, that you could sort of unlock, lots of innovation that, you could do for payments and commerce what, Apple's iOS did for mobile, that you give this beautiful layer of abstraction and easy access to sophisticated payment tools, you could unlock all this innovation. Well, many of the most sophisticated payment tools in the world, objectively, have existed at PayPal. They've, by pretty much every objective measure, done more for innovation and payments than any other player has. But we looked at it and said, hey, our developer platform could really make it much easier to access those things. And so we're 6 months into it, and we've done some things where we've launched things like Account Updater, where you could have like seamless updates to cards that are stored and things like that so far. But we're actually just now today announcing sort of the first big joint product that we're doing with PayPal, where we're launching what we're calling V0 of our SDK. And we're calling it that just because, even though we do many billions of dollars of volume on mobile and have many of the best mobile commerce experiences in the world, we looked at it and said, hey, we're now getting to a place where it's very clear that the buying experiences of the world are going to rewire over the next few years for mobile, and how we take the billions of dollars of volume that we've done on mobile and use that to inform, what is sort of the best way forward on this. And so we're launching, it's a complete update to our SDK that gives sort of in 10 lines of code a mobile optimized checkout flow across desktop web, mobile web, native apps on iOS and Android. And that gives you access to 130 foreign currencies, great fraud tools, easy one-touch payments like we've always had for years, and has PayPal integrated and the latest best consumer buying experience from PayPal, similar to what you would see in the Uber app, where you sign in one time, but you never have to sign in again within that app.
So it's an all-in-one SDK for everything that you were doing before, plus PayPal now.
That's right, and we think this is really important that you look at I have more than half of e-commerce shopping sessions coming from mobile devices. In fact, that was true as of holiday shopping season last year. It surpassed more than 50% of shopping sessions, but it's not yet 50% of buying. And the reason is that you have conversion rates. If a shopping session comes from a mobile device rather than laptop or desktop, the conversion rates fall by 2/3 to 75%. And a big part of the reason for that is that most of the buying experiences out there have not yet been fully mobile optimized. And one of the things we've seen is that if you can mobile optimize those, sort of time and again, we've done before and afters where we've seen e-commerce and mobile commerce companies that have completely bridged that gap or gotten to better conversion rates on mobile than laptop or desktop if it's mobile optimized. But a big part of why people haven't rewired for that is that it's difficult to do so, right? One, a lot of people don't really know what is a great mobile buying experience just because it's fairly new. But then if you think about sort of the Gen 1 e-commerce companies, it's a pretty daunting task to say, okay, even if I can figure out what's a great mobile buying experience, I've got to build it multiple times. I have to sort of re-architect what I'm doing for desktop web, build it yet again for mobile web, then build it a third time for native iOS, then build it a fourth time for native Android. So I think that's pretty daunting. And so we've said, one, we can package up what is world-class, and then make it so that you get, in 10 minutes, you get world-class across all 4 of those platforms. So we think that will be a big help to the industry as they go rewire, which really needs to happen. It ought to be the case. I think in a few years, it'll be the case that, of course, the vast majority of shopping sessions are coming from mobile. and the vast majority of purchases, and that's the part that's not there yet.
Gotcha. So you guys can read the full story about Braintree's new SDK at VentureBeat.com, but let's do some follow-up questions.
Sure, yeah.
I think the most interesting thing there is that, yeah, PayPal is now an essential part of this new Braintree SDK. And what's interesting is that, PayPal has been updating its mobile APIs over the past year. I think Uber was one of the first partners.
Yep.
Great integration, but now you guys are pushing this SDK as the ideal way to implement PayPal. Can you talk about what that means, and what does that mean for the existing PayPal stuff as well? Is it okay for it to kind of fall by the wayside?
Well, I mean, so we're not sunsetting anything
Sure.
that exists there today. We're just taking a big step forward in terms of the absolute easiest way to access PayPal and get the latest, best PayPal buying experience. And one of the things that's really interesting about what we've done with this is that we're sort of, as mobile continues to move very quickly, there's going to be a lot of iteration on this. And so one of the things we've done with this is sort of future-proofed for developers that if you implement our drop-in user interface, every time we go make another advancement to the way the mobile buying experience works or add another payment method or things like that, it'll just automatically ripple through to people that use our drop-in user interface, so they get some future-proofing to the fact that we're going to continue to iterate on what is a great consumer buying experience on mobile.
Well, I admire you guys because you're appealing to consumers' laziness. I think that's the key, right? Because now it's like you launch a new app, you're not going to sit there and peck in, a credit card separately. You see the prompt to log into PayPal. You can log into PayPal, and then you guys have also pushed so that people can actually find their credit cards more easily now and actually pay. So it's sneaky.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, I think it was said in the introduction that the worst part of mobile shopping is the payment, right?
Yeah.
And so ideally, nobody wants to pay. They want to shop and they want to buy, but nobody wants to pay. And so it's at its best when payments just get out of the way, right? At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make it so that consumers and merchants can connect seamlessly, which we think is the ideal state. That at the point in time you say, I want this thing from this site or this app, it should just happen, right? It shouldn't be, and now I've got to go tap in my billing address and then my shipping address because maybe that's different, and then my card information. And people just won't do that on the tiny little touchscreen, and that's why you see conversion rates. If it's not mobile optimized, you see the conversion rates that are 2/3 or 75% less because it's easy to picture. I'm not going to type in lots of data on this tiny little touchscreen. But with PayPal, we're able to take away a lot of that pain. And we've been working on that for a long time. We sort of democratized access to the one-touch buying experience, which has been around for quite a while, but I think it was a nice to have.
And by one touch, you mean you sign in once, right? And then
that's right.
Your credentials are there always.
That's right. And that's been around. There were one-click buying experiences early in the internet. But it really was sort of the realm of only the largest companies. We sort of democratized access to that. And the reason that becomes quite noteworthy is that on mobile, it's not a nice to have the way it was on the web. On the web, I could rekey my credit card and it wasn't fun, but it wasn't that painful. Sure. On a mobile device, it's just absolute table stakes. If you don't have one-touch buying, you're dead. Okay.
I'm also a lazy consumer. I'm wondering, so I don't even want to log into PayPal through several different apps now. I know you guys with Venmo, you had this great integration that allowed, you had the Venmo app and other apps could just connect to it to get that authentication information. How long will it be until we have that for PayPal? Because I think that at that point,
Yeah, we still very much believe that what we built with Venmo Touch, which was not built on user ID and password, but built on sort of once we've identified you on a device, you don't have to authenticate in the future. You have sort of seamless authentication across the device. The premise there really being what tells us more about who you are, the mobile device in your pocket or the magnetic stripe on the back of a credit card, right? That mobile device tells us far more. I didn't have to put in a user ID and password for that credit card. Why do I need to do it for the mobile device if it has far more data? We still think that's a great, really elegant buying experience. Part of what you get with our drop-in UI is you'll get, as we continue to advance Venmo Touch, you get those things seamlessly as well. And this premise of killing the user ID and password is shared within PayPal as well. So if you look at the announcement that PayPal and Samsung did together of you scan your fingerprint and pay with PayPal, very much down that path of there are going to be better ways to authenticate than user ID and password. So you'll see lots more revisions from us to that. Again, why the future proofing on that drop-in UI is important, because we're going to continue to iterate really quickly on what's a great mobile buying experience.
So I'm sure you can't give me specific dates, but end of the year, next year, like when can I just like give up on the PayPal login entirely?
We're working quickly.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We don't let grass grow under our feet, so that's for sure.
So with this announcement too, I think this is the first time where we're seeing a combined announcement from PayPal and Braintree. I've been covering you guys for a while, and you've had like separate news for a long while. Are we going to see more of these now, kind of united announcements?
Yeah, I mean, you'll start to see more of this. Like the real premise behind what we were doing at Braintree, and then with Venmo coming into Braintree, and that we shared with PayPal, is that sort of back to the one-touch buying experience being a nice to have in the web world, but a must-have in the mobile world. To really do that, you need to have both sides of the network. You need to have the ability to connect many millions of consumers with many millions of merchants. And so we were starting to build both sides of that equation with Braintree on the merchant side and Venmo on the consumer side, and have continued to have great traction with that. Venmo just crossed $1 billion in annual volume, which for like a native mobile app doing $1 billion, like there's only a handful of those in the world. So we very much believe that having both sides of the network, the consumer and the merchant, was going to be critical on mobile so that you could actually create this sort of frictionless buying. If you didn't also have a relationship with the consumer, you couldn't create the frictionless buying experience. So you'll continue to see sort of more of those kinds of things where we look to leverage the network at PayPal to do this, but Braintree becomes sort of the easy way to integrate those. The Braintree is sort of the easy way to go get the best of what PayPal can offer and the best of what the network can offer via Braintree. So expect a lot more of these sort of joint products coming down the road. Cool.
And you were one of the first companies, I think, to really bet on the potential success of mobile payments down the line. And yeah, I haven't seen too many other companies kind of go through that. Can you talk about like what led you to that decision? Are you a prophet or a wizard of some kind?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. So it's. So I've been a serial entrepreneur. This is the fourth startup. It was actually after selling the last startup, iPay, which was doing all the non-card payments for banks, like the bill pay and sort of online banking for more than half the banks in the U.S., including Capital One and Amex and others. Was starting to see in like 2008, 2009 that even though there weren't mobile optimized sites for those banks, that lots of people are actually coming, even though they're sort of like pinching and dragging, things like that, sort of as early days of the iPhone, pre-iPad even, but sort of the touchscreen UI, we were seeing tons of people coming on mobile devices, even though it wasn't mobile optimized. And so at the time when we said we're going to bet everything on e-commerce on the mobile device, people said, hey, you're out of your freaking mind. People are going to buy on this tiny little touchscreen. Even though there weren't a ton of people going and visiting these sites, there were enough of them that I really believe that if people are willing to do that, even though you got to pinch and drag and all these things, I really believe it was going to become a primary computing device, and really bet on that premise. That if you believe that mobile will be the primary computing device, what would you build? And 3 years ago, that was crazy. Now, it looks less crazy.
A little less crazy.
So, and I think we're just now getting to that place where it is the case now. It's not a debate of whether mobile is a primary computing device. It's more than half of e-commerce shopping sessions. But if you just look at time spent, mobile devices are far outpacing laptops and desktops. Like that is the primary computing device. So this premise that the entire world is going to rewire their buying experiences, that must happen. Consumers are there already. They're just waiting for the rest of the world to get there. And there's some great experiences. The Ubers, Airbnbs, Hotel Tonights. Of the world that are there, but there's a lot more that need to get there, and we think that's going to be some of the sort of the story of the next several years. Is that you'll have many more of these that are figuring out sort of the unique thing around several of those that the great early mobile commerce success stories have really solved a pain point, right? So the ones that have sort of not gone so well are the ones that said, here's this end state that throw away your wallet and pay for everything with your phone. Well, that might be the right end state where we're going to get to, but the ones that have really worked have been the ones that said, here's a tangible pain point for the consumer and the merchant that can be solved today. Right. And those have great success, right? Like Uber's an example, that Hotel Tonight's an example.
Yeah. I'm tired, I want to go home. I'm tired, I need something to eat. Easy payments, not like, I'm going to figure out how to use Google Wallet today.
Yeah, consumers don't wake up and say, oh, what if I didn't have to carry my wallet anymore?
Right.
They don't say that, but they do say, wow, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to stand in the rain for 20 minutes trying to get a taxi cab? Oh, like there's an app that solves that? Okay, that's fantastic. Or, the Starbucks experience where, people don't use the Starbucks app because they don't want to swipe their card. Few things in my life are easier than swiping my card at checkout. They use it because it solved the loyalty problem, right? Like I now get automatic rewards when I pay. I think there's gonna be a bunch more of these kinds of things where people figure out like what are these pain points that you can go solve with the mobile device. You see it happening already, like Parkwiz, one of the companies that's launching with us as part of this. On-demand mobile parking, right? So like I'm driving around looking for a parking spot versus like I can use my phone and like find one right away, right? So there's going to be a bunch more of these that just solve off slices of this. The end result will be that 5 years from now, yes, I can use my phone to pay for everything, but the way we get there won't be here's this one killer app that lets you throw away your wallet. It's going to be here's all these many apps that solve these different pain points, and we're looking to go create the infrastructure so that people can go easily build those.
Gotcha. One of the most interesting things I think about PayPal recently was when they brought on David Marcus. He brought a great startup vibe to it, and you guys started innovating really quickly. But now he kind of left, and I think a lot of people are wondering what is PayPal going to be doing next? What is the state of the company at this point? Do you think?
Yeah.
Where do you see it going forward?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only entrepreneur there. I think for us, this sort of shared vision that we had, it's actually the case that John Donahoe, CEO of eBay, he and I spent as much time negotiating the Braintree PayPal deal as David and I did, and John really subscribed to this vision as well in terms of like how mobile commerce plays out, and so that same sort of alignment from the top remains now with John stepping into that role in the interim. But there's a bunch of other great entrepreneurs. Like one of the things that I was really impressed by is that on the executive staff, which is sort of the direct reports to the president of PayPal, 8 of the 10 or so are former entrepreneurs, myself included.
Right.
Sad to see David go, but also fully expect that all the things we said we were going to go build, like we're going to continue down that path. And we've got a bunch of great people that are going to keep driving in that direction.
Gotcha. So yeah, it sounds like you're the most likely candidate to take over, though.
Like I said, there's a bunch of great entrepreneurs that are there, and a bunch of great people that are building these things. So, I'm very much heads down. Sort of, we have our view of how mobile commerce plays out. We're heads down building that. Okay. And we're gonna stay focused on that.
We'll see what next year brings. Sure.
Absolutely.
One last thing I want to talk about. You were bringing up this idea of like a contextual future, and that's kind of what you're envisioning is going to be the next state, not just for mobile payments, but for mobile in general. Can you talk a bit about that? Because that seems to be a big defining theme at MobileBeat this year.
I think one of the things that people aren't yet quite realizing is that people are just now starting to accept that mobile is where people are spending a lot of time, and they look at it as just a smaller form factor. I think there's a much more fundamental shift happening that we are moving to a contextual computing environment, right? And so to say what I mean by that is that it's not just that people don't want to tap in credit card information on a tiny little touchscreen. They don't want to do any kind of data entry on the tiny little touchscreen. And so what's starting to happen is that because people can't do data entry on these mobile devices, consumers are starting to expect that, of course, the application should know enough about me to serve me well without me having to do a bunch of data entry. And consumers are starting to expect that. I think that's only going to amplify. If you look at where mobile's going, it's not just the tiny little touchscreen now, it's the giant browser in the dashboard of my Tesla, or Google in my Audi, or wearable devices, Samsung smartwatches and Pebble and things like that. And so if you think it's hard to do data entry on a 4-inch touchscreen, can you do it in the browser in your Tesla driving down the road? I sure hope not. And so I think as you get more and more of these kinds of experiences, it will be the case that the way applications have to be built is that they are contextual, they understand what you want, they're predictive, and it's not requiring you as the user to provide data entry. I think there's examples of that out there now. Like that sounds a little science fiction-y, but like there are examples out there now. And 5 years from now, consumers will demand it, and I think it's going to happen even faster than that. Excellent. So we're out of time now. Try and find Bill out there. But thank you for joining us. Let's have a round of applause. Great. Thank you.